So one of the questions from the audience is, what use cases do you envision for marketing specifically? And we've talked a little bit about it, but let's just talk about that specifically now. Chris Hemphill, why don't you start? We haven't heard from you for a while, so you must be thinking about this.
You know, I was since I work at Woebot, not directly within marketing, I actually think it would be better to start with someone else. But
Okay.
I'm going to steal a little bit from Ahava in terms of generating headlines to figure out which one works. I have a YouTube channel that I do for fun called Music Macabre, where I read horror stories and stuff. And one fun thing to do there is to like, based on the story and based on the summary that that's being read, I will take that. I'll take that and have a little back and forth with an LLM on what a good set of titles would be. So part of it, just part of my overall framework for practical use is to start with rather than doing something that like asking it for, hey, here are a bunch of headlines. I'll first prompt it on the type of context, like imagine that you're the first thing I did to generate the title was asked it if it knew about this YouTube channel called Omeletto. And by its response, I was able to use the context that it understood and ask it to generate some responses that were within that context. But the main thing that I want to say for any kind of use of it is to the naked outputs are just not going to be of the quality that you might be looking for. But when it comes to getting high quality, very specific context, it requires a lot of prompting and back and forth with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so specific use cases, are there any that you're thinking of or planning already, Chris and Alan?
Well, you know, one thing.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Chris.
All right. Yeah, so I think we have a few use cases that make sense. You know, one is like through A/B testing or multivariate testing in like an email journey, as an example. You know, there's the option of creating options by prompting it appropriately, and I think that's the skill that is going to be the most beneficial for folks to get the best use out of tools like this. Is you know, Chris H described, you know, imagine you are acting as, you know, and starting that conversation, and then having it ask you questions back so that you can, you know, then respond in turn and get the best output. But, you know, thinking through something mundane like a orthopedic journey, let's say, you know, there's steps along the way that, you know, you want to align to some goals. You know, we're looking to reach this audience so that you can provide it a prompt of, this is the audience we're addressing, these are the channels we're using, these are the goals that we have. You know, how would you address a couple email topics in month 1, 2, and 3 of a journey? And, you know, I mean, again, you don't have to use what it puts out, but it's a good way to think through it and then have more informed conversations with stakeholders. So that's kind of that's one of the use cases. I think there's some social media use cases as well, but I'd be curious to hear how Alan's thinking about this from the broader communication lens.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, I think they see a couple applications right off the bat. One is just like working, it's kind of an extender of your workforce in a way. So, you know, you can have some of these tools give you a framework for a marketing plan or communication plan. It's going to have a lot of holes, but it's probably going to save you like 2 or 3 hours of work right off the bat. If you're a manager of people, like the other day, I asked ChatGPT to write a job description for something. Well, in the old days, you know, I'd go out and probably look at Indeed, probably look at other places. I'd probably spend 30 minutes looking for JDs that I could say, like, I want to take elements of it. Well, it can spit me out a JD in 1 minute, and then I can spend 5 minutes revising it. So there's things like that I just feel like some people have described ChatGPT as like your intern, you know, like your new intern, like all those little things that, you know, would take you just a little bit of time. So I feel like it's a kind of a workforce extender, and that's like a use case we have right now. Not replacing people, but allowing you to do more, allowing you to get high value tasks kind of on your plate and the low value stuff off. So there's all that. But I also think about when you have assets, you know, like we've all done campaigns where we have print ads and social and all this stuff. Well, we can put those things into some of these tools and say, you know, maybe we only have copy for one thing, but it's all done. It's finished. It's written. We like it. It's got our brand voice. We can say, create 5 social media posts out of this, create whatever. And again, we're going to have to look at it. We're going to have to make sure it's good, but it can do a lot of that revising and editing and things like that, as long as we have stuff already dialed in. So I feel like that's where the use case is right now. You know, looking at how it can extend your ability to just do work. And again, with that caution and thinking about the safety, but those low value things that, again, we're just eating up time, that's, I think, the best thing to look at right now.
I also think that, you know, Adobe just announced yesterday that you can use it in Photoshop. And if you watch that video, I mean, it's unbelievable what you can do now in like a hot second that you weren't able to do before. So that the images, I think, is going to really help people. Now, so everybody says like, okay, well, we're going to put people out of work. No, we're not. We're going to adapt and we're going to evolve. You're going to need more Photoshop engineers who really know how to prompt the technology to make the right photos. You're going to need editors to look at the photos to make sure that there aren't any possible problems with them, any deep fake issues with it, that you're going to make sure that your editorial and brand style guides are being followed. So I think it's exciting. I mean, if you have a stringent editorial process in place for every piece of content that you create and you can find shortcuts, it's a beautiful thing. The one thing Chris and Alan didn't say that I think I heard them say, but I want to make sure that they agree about, is that you cannot use this thing to build a strategy. You can use it to write like a campaign plan and then fill in all the holes. But as far as I know thus far, like I once asked it to give me a list of influential Jewish women and it put Natan Sharansky on the top. Natan Sharansky is a man. He identifies as a man. I don't know what data set it was given, but I would be afraid to ask it to do anything strategic because it doesn't even get facts right half the time. Well, not half the time, but and then it hallucinates, which is great. Now we have a, you know, machine hallucinating, like just what we needed. So I'm just wondering if any of you think that you would use it for strategy.
Yeah, I agree with you right now. I would not. And I think the value for professionals right now is to take the strategy you know, the experience you know, and marry it up with the tool where it makes sense. On a personal note, like one thing that I really advise people is like when you're on a platform like LinkedIn and people are coming to you for your advice, your strategy, your experience, that's the absolute worst place to just generate stuff on ChatGPT and throw it out there because it doesn't give any of your insights. It doesn't have any of your authenticity. So that strategy piece, the experience that you bring to the work, it can't do that. That's not what it can do now. And I think that's going to be something with struggles in the future. And the value add for communicators and marketers in our field is blending, like knowing how to use these tools where it makes sense with our own experience and our own strategic, you know, vision and things like that. That's where the value is really going to add.
Yeah, I think you're looking at like the vastness of unstructured information still. You know, I mean, we can plumb, you know, terabytes and terabytes of information into language models, but it will never replace, you know, the one-to-one hallway conversations, if you still have those anymore. We were just 100%. Talking earlier about how I haven't been to the office in years, but you know, I mean, those organic conversations that build context and frame what people deliver as strategic thought and creative thought, and then apply from there, you know, you kind of ladder down into tactical things eventually. I feel like that's where we are in this era of language modeling. But, you know, again, Terminator 2 figured out a way to you know, take over the world. So we'll get there one day. I hope it's not in our lifetime.
Do we have time for one more?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a term I want to throw out. It's called the McNamara fallacy. And what happens with the McNamara fallacy is that if something came from a spreadsheet or came from some data set, people have a tendency to believe it more. So well, like as you're having that back and forth conversation with ChatGPT about what constitutes an effective headline or what have you, just beware of the fact that for a lot of people in a lot of cases, just because it came from data or just because it came from this AI approach, you might be more susceptible to it. So keep those principles that you're grounded in and the strategy that you've learned more firmly into play before like the thing that ChatGPT generates, like you have just a lower threshold for the quality level of that content.
Yeah, it wrote my bio once, and I don't know who that woman is, but good for her. So I don't know where I got all that information.